Close your eyes, it's 1930. Talking films fill theaters, sleek new automobiles roll along wide roads, and jazz melodies drift through smoky night air. Let's wander gently into the year. Welcome, dear listener. I'm Toro, and tonight I invite you to drift with me into the quiet embrace of 1930. The world, only a year removed from the dramatic crash of Wall Street, was beginning to feel the tremors of uncertainty. Yet in the midst of worry, life went on with a soft persistence. Children still chased marbles in the dust of summer streets. Families gathered around wooden radios, listening to distant voices carried by invisible waves. And in theaters, the glow of talking films seemed like magic, flickering dreams larger than life. The year was a delicate balance of contrasts, nations searching for stability, yet also inventing, creating, and imagining futures brighter than the present. To wander through 1930 is to hear the hum of progress, mixed with the quiet murmur of ordinary days. So, let us walk slowly through its streets, past newspapers folded under arms, past cafes where laughter rises, past classrooms filled with chalk dust. Let us see the world in its fullness, in its worries and its wonders, as softly as a lullaby. World events. The year 1930 unfolded gently but decisively upon the stage of history. Across the globe, nations sought to steady themselves in uncertain times. In January, the world gathered around the signing of the London Naval Treaty, a pact designed to limit the size and number of warships among major powers. The Great War was still not so distant in memory, and leaders hoped that through limitation, they might preserve peace upon the seas. Ordinary people perhaps did not feel the weight of such signatures directly, but they read about it in newspapers, and the thought of fewer battleships quietly promised a gentler future. Meanwhile, in India, a tall figure in simple cloth began a quiet march that would echo far beyond his footsteps. Mahatma Gandhi led the Salt March, a peaceful protest against colonial salt laws. Thousands joined him along the dusty roads, walking not with weapons but with resolve. For listeners far away, stories of this march appeared like a whisper of a new kind of strength, that of non-violence. Elsewhere, the world shifted in more silent ways. In Turkey, reforms under Mustafa Kemal Ataturk reshaped daily life, drawing the nation further towards secular modernity. In Latin America, countries like Brazil and Argentina balance between political change and cultural vibrancy, where tango music and football stadiums filled with cheering voices carried spirits through uncertain days. The United States, still trembling from the market collapse of 1929, witnessed unemployment rise. Farmers looked at dry fields as the beginnings of the Dust Bowl stirred, though its harshest years were still to come. Yet through all of this, communities leaned on one another, hosting church suppers, sharing harvests, and playing music in small town halls. In Europe, Germany felt the weight of reparations and economic hardship, while France and Britain sought stability in cautious governance. And in distant corners of the globe, from bustling Shanghai streets with neon lights and rickshaws weaving between motorcars, to quiet African villages where rhythms of drums still told stories under the night sky, the world pulsed with continuity, with traditions carrying forward. Thus, 1930 was not only a year of treaties and protests, of politics and hardship. It was a year of people adjusting, finding ways to move onward, even as the larger stage shifted beneath their feet. One story that shaped 1930. When people look back upon 1930, one story rises with a certain clarity: the Salt March in India. Picture it gently: the sun warming dusty roads, the sound of sandals pressing into earth, the flutter of cotton garments against the breeze. Gandhi, frail in body but strong in spirit, walked steadily toward the sea. Around him, villagers and students, elders and children, joined step by step. Their goal was not conquest but salt, that most ordinary of substances, taxed heavily by colonial power. To the outside world, the march seemed almost symbolic. Yet for those who walked, each mile was a heartbeat of resistance. As they bent down to gather handfuls of salt from the sea, they were saying softly, "We can govern ourselves. We can live with dignity." For the listener in Europe or America, this story arrived through newspapers with black and white photographs. It was a distant drama, perhaps, yet carried an unmistakable tone of quiet bravery. And for Indians, it was a moment that stitched hope into the fabric of daily life. Families whispered about the march around kitchen fires. Children grew up with the tale of Gandhi's steps, not loud or angry, but steady and enduring. It shaped the year because it reshaped the imagination of what was possible. Non-violence, discipline, and community could become a power strong enough to face empires. And in the hush of night time, perhaps a farmer in Bengal or a shopkeeper in Delhi felt comfort knowing that history was being walked into being, not with thunder, but with the soft persistence of footsteps. Daily life around the world. What was it like to live in 1930, away from the headlines? Let us step softly into kitchens, schools, and streets. In cities of Europe and America, radios became the centerpiece of the living room. Families gathered in the evening, lamps glowing, as familiar voices spoke or sang from polished wooden boxes. Programs brought laughter, news, and music into homes that otherwise might feel heavy with uncertainty. Clothing told stories of elegance and practicality. Men wore tailored suits, even when modest, often with hats tipped politely in greeting. Women's fashion moved gently from the flapper spark of the 1920s toward a more modest grace, with longer skirts and soft waves in their hair. Children wore sturdy shoes and carried books bound with straps as they walked to school, chalk dust waiting on classroom slates. In rural areas, life moved by the rhythm of seasons. Farmers in Europe tended wheat and barley. In Asia, rice paddies shimmered under the sun. In the Americas, cornfields stretched wide, though many farmers faced hardship as prices fell. Still, meals remained hearty, bread fresh from ovens, soup simmering slowly, coffee poured into chipped enamel cups. Transport carried the modern glow of progress. In busy capitals, trams clattered along tracks, buses rumbled, and sleek new cars whispered of speed and prosperity. In quieter towns, bicycles remained faithful companions, and horse-drawn carts still rolled steadily over cobblestones. Air travel, though young, began to stitch continents together, and the sight of an airplane overhead brought children running outside, pointing skyward. Leisure had its gentle rituals. Families played card games, children skipped rope, and neighbors visited on porches. In America, baseball fields echoed with cheers. In Britain, football pitches drew devoted crowds. And everywhere, music drifted through evenings, jazz spilling from clubs, folk songs hummed by firesides, lullabies whispered over cradles. Prices revealed the world in miniature. A loaf of bread in the United States cost about 9 cents, a gallon of gas about 20 cents. In Britain, a cup of tea in a cafe remained a small luxury anyone could afford. These numbers, though simple, tell of a world where coins still stretched far, even as pockets grew lighter. Thus, daily life in 1930 was not defined only by hardship, but by quiet routines that gave people comfort: a warm meal, a familiar tune, the sound of children laughing. Science, inventions, and technology. Even in times of challenge, curiosity did not sleep. The year 1930 offered gentle sparks of discovery and invention. In medicine, penicillin had been discovered some years earlier by Alexander Fleming, but in 1930 researchers began to refine its potential, foreshadowing a future where infections could be treated more safely. Doctors, still relying on older remedies, sensed that science was slowly reshaping their world. Astronomy gifted a wonder. Clyde Tombaugh, a young American astronomer, discovered a tiny, distant world, Pluto. Though far away, this speck of light stirred imaginations. Headlines carried the news, and for children gazing through telescopes, the universe suddenly felt larger, more mysterious, more inviting. Household life, too, shifted with new devices. Refrigerators, once luxuries, appeared in more kitchens, humming quietly and keeping milk cool. Vacuum cleaners and washing machines saved hours of labor, though many families still relied on scrub boards and clotheslines. On the roads, automobiles grew faster and more stylish. Brands like Ford and Chevrolet competed, producing cars with smooth curves and chrome details that gleamed in sunlight. For the few who could afford them, these cars represented freedom, the open road stretching endlessly ahead. In aviation, pioneers continued to push boundaries. The skies grew busier, with passenger flights connecting cities. To sit in an airplane in 1930 was still a marvel, clouds drifting by like a dream, the earth unfolding below like a patchwork quilt. Thus, the world of 1930 was one of progress, not yet modern as we know it, but already humming with inventions that promised to reshape daily rhythms. Culture and the arts. Culture carried the year with a gentle vibrancy. In cinema, the world fully embraced talking films. The novelty of synchronized sound became the new standard, and theaters everywhere filled with voices, laughter, and music. Stars like Greta Garbo, Clark Gable, and the Marx Brothers lit up screens, offering audiences escape and delight. Music carried the pulse of jazz, swing, and blues. Louis Armstrong's trumpet soared, while Duke Ellington's orchestra filled grand halls. In living rooms, gramophones spun shellac records, their crackling sound adding warmth to melodies. Books offered quiet refuge. Sinclair Lewis became the first American to win the Nobel Prize in Literature, celebrated for his sharp yet human portrayals of American life. Elsewhere, poets and novelists wrote stories that reflected both longing and resilience. Sports brought energy. In the first ever FIFA World Cup, held in Uruguay, football teams from across the globe competed. Matches filled with cheers, and Uruguay emerged the winner. Though still small compared to later tournaments, it marked the beginning of a tradition that would unite millions. Art shifted too. In Europe, surrealists like Salvador Dali painted dreamlike scenes, melting clocks and fantastical landscapes that stirred imagination. Meanwhile, architecture embraced modernist forms, with clean lines and functional designs that whispered of the future. Culture in 1930, whether in smoky jazz clubs, crowded cinemas, or quiet reading corners, gave people a way to breathe more easily, to find beauty even when the world outside felt heavy. Media and headlines. News in 1930 arrived mostly through newspapers, delivered daily to doorsteps or sold on bustling street corners. Radios, too, grew in importance, reading headlines aloud into homes. Readers saw serious stories: Gandhi arrested in India, London Naval Treaty signed, Pluto discovered by young astronomer. But alongside these, lighter notes appeared: new recipes for economical meals, updates on fashion trends, even jokes tucked into small columns. Prices and advertisements caught the eye. In the United States, a new car might cost around $600, while a fashionable dress could be purchased for under $10. Cigarette brands advertised heavily, and radios themselves were promoted as essential household treasures. Headlines were not only political but human. Baby born on train. School children plant trees for Arbor Day. Local baseball team triumphs. Such stories reminded readers that life, in its small wonders, continued steadily. Thus, the media of 1930 offered a mixture, the great and the humble, the serious and the playful, woven together in the fabric of daily reading. People born and people died this year. Every year brings arrivals and farewells. In 1930, several notable figures were born. Among them was Neil Armstrong, who would one day take humankind's first steps on the moon. Also arriving were writers like Gore Vidal, and musicians such as Ornette Coleman, whose saxophone would later bend jazz into new shapes. Farewells were offered too. The world lost Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the creator of Sherlock Holmes, leaving behind a legacy of mystery and imagination. Also passing was William Howard Taft, former U.S. President and later Chief Justice, remembered for his calm dignity. Each birth and each death gently reminded the world that history is carried not just by events, but by people, whose stories echo softly across time. As 1930 drew to a close, the world stood in a twilight of moods. On one hand, economic hardship deepened in many lands, leaving questions about tomorrow. On the other, inventions, art, and quiet acts of courage gave reasons to hope. Families looked to the new year with mixed hearts, some fearful, some determined, many simply carrying on. Children hung stockings by fireplaces, lovers strolled beneath winter skies, musicians played songs to fill the cold air with warmth. Life continued, softly, insistently. The year's end was not marked by thunder but by quiet, the kind of quiet where dreams begin. And as calendars turned, the world whispered to itself, tomorrow is always another chance. And so, dear listener, we leave behind the gentle echoes of 1930. We have walked past its treaties and marches, its cinemas and kitchens, its inventions and lullabies. If this journey has soothed you, I invite you to rest a little deeper, and when you wake, to carry the calm with you. If you'd like to join me again, I welcome you to like and subscribe, so that each week you may drift into another year with me. For next time, we will step softly into 1931, another chapter in our bedtime journey through history. Until then, may your dreams be gentle, your sleep be deep, and your heart be at peace. Good night.